Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this, my friends, is the Pgytech OnePro Flex 40 liter. It's an adventure travel-oriented photography bag with a flexible main volume, manufactured by Pgytech, a China-based manufacturer of a wide variety of camera and drone accessories, including bags, pouches, tripods, mounts, and more. Now, if I were to summarize this bag in one sentence, it would be, what is the answer to the design question? What would it look like if you designed a photography backpack and just like gave it all the stuff? And boy, oh boy, my friends, let me tell you, this bag does in fact have all the stuff. So let's start with the pros of this bag here. Now, the strengths are quite plentiful. It has this flexible main volume from which it gets the name Flex from, and I'll show you this in a little bit here, but that adds an extra 10 liters of space or else compresses down when needed. I love this feature. It's also very, very comfortable. It has this well-padded, kind of sweat-reducing, well-cushioned ace frame load carriage system that has a high degree of adjustability for a variety of torso sizes and is very comfortable to carry thanks to this integrated hip belt, even with heavy loadouts over long distances. It has tons of organization all over the outside and front of the bag and the inside and whatever. And it has not just the ability to carry camera gear, but also items you might need in your everyday life, from laptops to water bottles to things like wallets and more. It has accommodations for a ton of photography gear. There's this place where you can put a gimbal in the front here if you are like a videographer. There's this whole gimbal carrying system right here. There's a built-in tripod carry. There's a bunch of different swappable camera inserts I'll show you later. Just a lot of capacity to carry just about any kind of camera equipment or drone or whatever you might have in mind. It's also one of a limited number of photography bags on the market that also includes significant wide open space up at the top that allows you to carry things you need for adventure travel: food, water, stove, emergency bivvy, down jacket, plus all your camera gear, including sizable kind of professional gear. Overall, this bag can just carry a lot of stuff and do it quite comfortably. Now, there are some cons to the bag. First of all, it's quite heavy. The official weight with everything stripped down is only 1.96 kilograms, which you might be like, that's heavy, but not that heavy. But the problem is, to actually have it usable, you need like a medium camera cube or something in it, and then it gets up to like 2.85 kilograms, which is substantial. The hip belt is not removable. It's attached. It's very comfortable, but it's not removable. And that plus this non-removable metal frame stay limits the bag's usability in certain key areas. You're not probably going to be able to get this onto a plane, which is a big con for adventure travel. There's a bunch of places I went overseas recently that I would have loved to take in this bag. I just couldn't figure out how to get it on the plane. And I'm certainly not going to check in my camera gear. And the other thing is, like, this doesn't really make it useful for like EDC use. Like, it's, there's a 30-liter version, which I'll talk about in a second, but again, this non-removable hip belt just kind of makes us a killer. This bag is unavoidably fussy. There's just like straps and everything going on, and pockets and expansion and gussets and folds and nooks and crannies. It just has it requires a high cognitive overhead to deal with. And finally, despite the awesome carrying capacity of the bag and its ability to swap in the different camera cubes, they don't make a camera cube large enough for like larger telephotos. So I would have loved to have used this as a dedicated birding bag for, kind of certain kind of expeditions, but I just couldn't fit my, FE 600 millimeter f4 in it, even with the L-size camera cube. Now, that having been said, I still think this is a pretty great bag, so let's get all into it. Now, the basic overview of this bag, or basic info, available in 3 sizes: 30, 40, 50 liters, and in 2 colors, black and orange. It comes with either an M-size camera insert or an L-size camera insert, and I've got the M-size spec inside of here. Here, it comes with this M-size camera insert or an L-size one, but you can also buy those separately. Now, not all the color sizes and insert combos are available, but you can, as I said, spec what you need when you buy it on the site, and the prices range from $355.95 US for the 30 liter with the M-size insert up to $429.95 for the 50 liter with a large insert. Now, the inserts themselves are available in 4 sizes, from extra small to large, and they range in price from $49.95 from extra small all the way up to $99.95 for the large. Now, I'm reviewing the 40 liter in black with the S, M, and L. This is the M in here. I'll show the S and the L in a second here. And everything is available on pgytech.com or on bhphoto.com. Now, disclaimer, I've been using this bag for a few months now, and I've had the opportunity to put it through several kind of different, pretty decent outdoor adventures. I'd like to thank Pgytech for sending this bag and the inserts over for review. As always, all the opinions are my own, and they don't get any input into this review. They don't know what's going to be inside of it. In terms of who this bag is for and who it's not for, first of all, I think it's for adventurers adventure or outdoor photographers or any kind of photographer that needs to carry really large professional loadouts. And I'll show you something. If you need to carry like a holy trinity plus like a big, chonky telephoto plus some other gear or whatever, like a drone and a full set of gear, whatever, like this is a great bag for you. If you're a photographer who needs to do like adventure or kind of mixed outdoor survival kind of like equipment, you need to carry something to get you, in case you get stuck in the mountain overnight or whatever, plus all your professional gear, this is a great bag for you. If you're hauling a ton of gear in places where roller bags won't go, like this is a great bag for you. Now, conversely, who is not for anyone with smaller, medium loadouts, like this is just way over. This is a big chunky bag for people with big chunky kits. The 30 liter might be a little bit more reasonable. Even then, I still think you're gonna be better off with like an urban kind of like a Peak Design kind of thing, or like a Shimoda Urban Explorer kind of thing. Is just more reasonable for like mere mortals in like urban situations. Ultralight adventure travel photography, this is just obviously completely based on weight and size and complexity alone, is out of scope for you. Any kind of urban photography, as I mentioned, this is with the straps and all this stuff. This is very much an outdoor oriented type bag. And photographers need to fly with their gear. Like I said, this one's just a tough bag to make work like on a plane. You might be able to get away with it, especially with a 30 liter one, but like I wouldn't want to risk it, and like the hip belt and the frame and all that. Anyway, so because there's so much going on with this bag, I'm going to kind of really fly through the different, overview of the bag, starting with the outside and all that. Then I'm going to dive deep in a couple of use cases here. So the overall design of the bag is, as you can see, kind of dominated on the front by this. I mean, it's a fairly tarpaulin looking outdoor, kind of tarpaulin like outdoorsy kind of like photography bag. There's a lot of bags like this out there, but this one has this like distinctive little hat clamshell beak thing, which is where the expansion happens on the bag here. This is the flex part of it, and that is, I think, one of the most dominating factors or, kind of design elements of this bag here on the front. Plus, you got all the cords and all this. Like I said, it's a busy looking bag. When you flip around to the back, this is dominated by this very robust ace frame flex suspension system with like the aluminum frame stay and then like the non-removable hip belt and these big chunky shoulder straps. That's definitely the other defined. Like this is a very serious looking, outdoorsy looking kind of bag. I don't know if it's a beautiful bag, but it looks very functionally outdoor and kind of high-techy in that way, if you will. In terms of the actual features of the bag on the outside kind of compartment, so let's start with all the straps and stuff here. You got this big bungee system, which I often use for like threading my jacket or my rain shell on there. It's removable and adjustable as you need here. You also have like these ice axe or like trekking pole loops on either side of the bag here. On the side, you have these integrated but unclippable compression/retaining straps on the side here, on both sides of the bag here, and on the bottom, you also have this kind of compression thing going on here. At the bottom, also these loops here, and then all kind of tucked away on the inside here. There's two loops here. It comes with these two extra straps that you can use here to attach at the bottom and like attach like a sleeping roll or sleeping pad or something like that at the bottom if you would like. The front of the bag has this big external compartment in the front here, and this is designed for carrying like a gimbal. I do not have like a serious gimbal, but this is like a little smartphone gimbal here, and it'll demonstrate the same thing, which is like it's got a little pocket at the bottom here where you can tuck in the handle of it, and it's got this retaining strap, and it'll just kind of keep your gimbal kind of nice and flat. And there it'll handle obviously like a much larger gimbal for like pro DSLR use or pro mirrorless user. Inside of here, you have these two kind of stretch mesh pockets, and then you have like a key leash that's built into there. There's a little open area here. There's nothing on the front of this part here, but it is kind of lightly padded to help protect your gimbal if you should put it inside of there. When you turn the bag to the side here, you see these other external pockets, a water bottle pocket, one on each side here, elasticated. It'll hold a fairly sizable water bottle, quite large. I usually use this one for tripods. Actually, I put like my Peak Design travel tripod in here, and then I would just loop it up through here and stabilize it with this strap on there. Speaking of tripods, in the front of the bag here, on this little kind of tuck-in pocket, there's this little drop-down tripod holder. If you've got a much larger tripod that won't fit in the side pocket, or you want to put it here for weight purposes, you can tuck one or two of the legs inside of here, and then run it through the loops on the front of the bag as you would like here. I never really use this one because, like I said, my tripod is generally a fairly smaller sized one. And then you go to the top of the bag, you have this sort of top brain pocket here that opens up like this. And we switch to the overhead view here. You can see like this gives you like this top dump compartment, which I found quite useful for like throwing like my jackets, some snacks, food, flashlight, kind of first aid kit or whatever I might need in a hurry, while still having like access to my camera gear in the back here or whatever. It does have this divider in the middle that you can actually open up. I'll show you that in a second here. But also up here you have like this kind of elasticated mesh top pocket. I found this a great place to put like my phone or like sometimes my keys or my wallet or whatever, stuff that I would need some access to along the way, depending on, you know, when and where I was. But I, you know, wanted to keep handy for like when I got back to the car, I could just unzip this, get my keys out and in the car. But, you know, I didn't want it to get lost every time I opened up this container. There's a few other good places to carry that kind of stuff. I'll show you this as we get through the rest of this bag here. The sides of the bag also have more going on beyond just these water bottle pockets. There are these nice big loop, finger loop zippers that you can kind of like pull open like this. Water resistant zippers here, and that kind of opens up to show this big pocket here. Inside of here you have a bunch of stretch smaller pockets in here. I put like sometimes my filters in there. I would put like, you know, battery or random cables and stuff inside of here, etc. So nice little options here. This is lightly padded on the outside, has some amount of independent dimension, so you can put moderately, very slight, moderately bulky items in there. Of course you want to be careful, you put like a water bottle in there, you don't want it to break your filters or something. And on this side here, it actually opens up to reveal access to the main camera cube that you have inside of there, and then also this pocket inside of here, which has a little bit of padding here to protect it, and then you've got these 4 pockets for your batteries here with these cool little sliders that you can turn from red to green to show like the status of the batteries that you've got in there, if they're live or dead or whatever. The camera cubes are swappable, and you can also do the thing where if you wanted, you can open up the lid of the camera cube like this, and then this thing velcros open. You can tuck it in there so that it opens up like this and lets you get directly into your camera, in and out, shoot like that. Turning the bag around, we get into the really robust load carriage system. So load carriage system on this bag consists of these 2 little straps, one on the side and one on the top. You can kind of carry it like this if you want, but really these are just for like portaging the bag back and forth. And the real star of the show, which is like this super thick, really thickly padded shoulder straps here. They've got this really thick air mesh, and then there's like a very thick foam, very thick substantial foam with like holes cut in it. This allows a lot of sweat and humidity evaporation through here. The top of it is lined in this mesh as well, so it lets this kind of moisture kind of pass through there. The rest of the shoulder straps have like a water bottle hose pass through. It's got a little loop here in case you wanted to, like, you know, bind on like a cell phone pocket or something like that, and a loop down here at the bottom to help stabilize those. It's got 2 flat areas so you can attach like a Peak Design capture clip, or, you know, Pgytech makes their own equivalent or whatever. It's got a sternum strap that's removable on a standard rail system with deflex buckles. The buckle has a whistle on it in case you get stuck or injured, need to call for help. Adjustable built-in strap keeper, elasticated component. I just really like it. It's a really standard, it's a really well built like buckle sternum strap with all the things. On the other shoulder strap you have a built-in mesh you know, water bottle pocket holder or gel holder with a little elastic loop in there if you want. You can probably put your phone in there if you wanted as well. Up at the top you have these load lifters, which is necessary especially if you pop the top on this thing, which I'll show you here in a second, and it extends way up above the shoulder line. If you really like pull out the whole capacity of the bag, you'll need this to kind of bring the load in closer towards you. The shoulder straps attach with these kind of adjustable sections here, which I'll switch to the overhead view to show you. And what you do is you have these little orange loops here, and then you can see there's some kind of markings for the different levels. There's 4 levels of adjustability. You pop it out, you can move it up and down like this. You can move it up and down, and then it locks into place for whatever your height is. I really like that. It's a really good touch, especially for a bag like this. It's super important just because you need to be able to have like proper sizing so it can like transfer the load effectively to your hip belt. That goes into this kind of, with this yoke kind of like system, passes through into like this ace frame system. So the ace frame is this aluminum kind of outlined thing that provides structure and rigidity, and load transfers from the top down to the hip belt. And then over it stretch this kind of taut mesh fabric that provides really good both cushioning and like suspension, because it's kind of like stretchy, but taut, and then also provides really good moisture evaporation, sweat evaporation. It's one of the few backpack load carrier systems I think actually does a good job of dealing with back sweat. At the bottom, they have like bolstering with the same kind of thick foam with like holes in it for moisture pass through, then in the lumbar region for stability, and then that passes then through to this hip belt, which is non-removable, but very robust, kind of standard, or same kind of air mesh and foam we're seeing on there. Like the hip belt is adjustable in two areas. You've got like these side ones here to kind of control how closely it hugs to your body and how closely it stabilizes the transference of weight from the backpack to the hip belt. And then in the front, you've got these two additional areas here where you can kind of pull forward to kind of cinch it tighter around your waist or whatever. I like the kind of hip belts like this that pull forward because it's just easier to kind of get the right fit rather than ones that pull backwards there. The hip belts themselves have stretch pocket here. On this side, you could fit a phone or snacks or even a small little point and shoot camera in there. And this side has additional kind of flat pass-throughs for you to put like a capture clip or like a camera holster or whatever you want on that side there. Overall, I really, really like the suspension system on this bag, and I felt it was like really, like it's a very robust suspension system, especially for a camera backpack, but I think it was kind of key to being able to carry like the amount of weight that you could fit in a bag like this, especially with a larger insert, plus some of your like non-camera goods. So I did previously show you at the top of this bag here, there's the Flex system here. And what it does is basically you can unclip these two straps on either side here that are integrated, or you can let them out as you want. And then that lets you kind of just flip this whole area up like this to add an additional 10 liters of space. You can see it really kind of gets up there. This is super useful for reasons I'm gonna show you in a second. But one thing you can also do besides just extending it up all the way is you can also kind of loosen up these straps a bit here. And it kind of gives you this area in here that you can stick something like, you know, a sleeping roll or sleeping pad or something like that, a yoga mat for whatever reason. So for example, I just stuck like a sample sleeping pad in there. You can put something like that in there and it'll kind of sandwich in there. Obviously, if it's a little bit longer, it's gonna be better. A tent shelter or something like that might also work well in there. I didn't actually use that feature of it so much, but it is something you can do in there I want to call out. Without it, even without it all the way cinched up, like it kind of gives you this big dump pocket on the top here, but it also has this zippered compartment in here that you can open up that then lets you access directly all the way into another compartment that's inside of like the bag there. I'll show you how that works by just quickly opening up the bag here. You can see here, now there's this whole other area here inside of the bag here. I've got a medium camera cube inside of there. You are also able to open that up like this, and now you can get a full pass through through this whole area, depending on how you want it. Or you can, as I said, zip this part shut. Now you've got one compartment on top here, one compartment down here. So a lot of different options for how you might want to make that work here. Now that I've kind of shown you quickly inside of the bag, actually let me show you how you get into the bag. So you get into the main bag by these two fairly robust water resistant zippers with these big zipper pulls, and you kind of pull them open like this, but you can hit this little latch here. There's two latches, one here and one here. And the way that these work is they have they're little magnets. How do they work? A little pull tab, and you just pull this and then it pops open like this. And then you can pull it down, pull the next one out, pops open like this. And then you can kind of work your way around there. Now, the reason why you have these magnets or why you have these kind of clips is kind of for safety in case you might forget to, for example, like zip up your bag all the way, and then you start, pick up the bag and like everything would spill out. But if you've got these magnets or these clips attached, you're able to at least, kind of keep the bag from like spilling out all the contents when you pick it up. It is kind of fussy, I'm not gonna lie. Like I found myself always struggling with these every time I wanted to open the bag, but I'm better to have it than not have it. And one thing that I did find useful is like when I would set up to like shoot, I thought I had a good vantage point, but then I realized like maybe 10 meters over there is a better vantage point rather than like re-zip everything up because the zipper is a little bit frictionful as you saw. I could just kind of pop these two magnets on there. I could just carry the bag, like portage the bag like this. It wasn't too bad. And then, I just pop it open like this. So like kind of when you're working on location, you need to move the bag briefly. Those clips are kind of nice there. Laying the bag down, it just kind of flops open like this. And you can kind of see here what I have is I've got the camera cube lids, the medium camera cube attached in with this little Velcro. There's this little Velcro thing a little elastic Velcro that just kind of like attaches onto it like this. And that makes it open when you open the bag. You can also, if you want, just kind of keep this zippered shut and then not use this here. Let me talk about this side briefly first here. There is a laptop compartment here, which is lightly padded and also has a tablet sleeve on the front, which is also lightly padded. technically barely suspended off the bottom of the bag, but generally this bag is decently padded, although I do wish this were just a little bit further up from the bottom, so it should be okay. But like I don't usually carry my laptop inside of this thing. This thing's heavy enough as it is with all my gear. But if you do, just kind of be mindful. Generally protected, but a little bit close to the bottom there for me. Magnet, how do they work? With a clip in there. It's really nice, feels good. And at the top you have this nice little kind of really thin, billowy fabric pocket, which I also would use to put like my wallet, my keys, my earbuds, or whatever in here. I kind of like it's kind of nice and inside and protected and sealed and all that, but still relatively easily accessible when I get back to the car. And that's really kind of it for this side here, other than those attachment points that I mentioned for the lid. There's one here and then there's one here if you're using the larger camera insert, which I'll show you in a second. So flipping over to this side, you can see what kind of, here's the area I was showing you earlier. You've got two kind of compartments here. Well, technically you have this main area here, which is where the camera cubes can go in. I've got one attached, and I'll show you how that attaches here in a second. And then up top, you have that other compartment area, which I showed you can be kind of like segregated like this, and then you can open this internal compartment and get into like the main area up at the top of the Flex expansion. Yeah, I found this really useful, like I said, for like when going outdoors. Like I would carry like my food and like my sunscreen and maybe a rain shower or something like that, and water or whatever inside of here, and then have your like camera equipment down here at the bottom. And then I'll show you a little bit more about how this whole area up at the top works in a second. Flipping the bag down here. I mentioned this camera bag can come with a variety of different works with a variety of different inserts. There's 4 different inserts here. This is the medium. I've left this one in the default configuration just because I don't usually use this one. I use the small and then the large, which I'll show you here in a second. But it comes with a bunch of different inserts. You can obviously move them around as you want. The way it attaches is there's these little clips and there's these little loops that line the entirety. There's this rail that kind of just lines the entirety of both sides of the inside of the bag. And so you just pull one of the little clips up. There's this little loop on it, which really helps. And you kind of like just pull it through like this. And then it's locked into place like this. You could do the same here on the 4 points or whatever. And then, like I said, you can put this little Velcro thing in there, and then you've got the whole thing that opens like that. Plus, if you want to do side access, as I showed you earlier, you can do side access through here. So it comes with this strap. You can ostensibly do the same thing. It's just a little loop like this, little loop, and then you're supposed to kind of loop it around the strap here and loop it around the other one, and then you're supposed to be able to carry it like that. I did not do that, but it is something that I think is a nice touch, although I'm not sure I'm crazy about how this loop and toggle system works for like a load-bearing strap, as opposed to just stabilizing the camera cube inside of your backpack. So if you remove it, you're left with this kind of big open area here. And like I said, you do have this top compartment at the top here, which can also be adjusted with these loop and toggles. So let me show you, because I don't use the medium one that much, but I do use the small and large. So I've got right here the small camera insert here. It's the same thing, got these 2 little toggles at the top here and down here or whatever. It does technically have a side axis if that's your thing, but that's not what I use this one for. Open it up, and I've got inside of here my Hasselblad, like how I would carry like when I'm going out shooting landscapes with my Hasselblad. So I've got the Hasselblad X2D with the L bracket on there. I've got 35 to 75 on here. I've got the 20 to 35 on here, and I've got a 90-2.5 for when I really need. I need a little bit more reach than what I can get out of the 75. And then I've got a 50-2.5, I think, in case, I'm out there shooting landscapes. So I need a nice normal portrait lens or a nice normal lens because I run into a person or whatever, I take their photo. And this all just fits really nicely here. There's a lot more dividers that come with this one than what I showed you. There's also technically a strap here on the off case. I would need to like somehow separate this from the bag. I just usually keep it tucked inside of there. And then this one, I just drop it into here, and then the same thing attaches in there sort of with those same toggles as I showed you. Now you've got something like this, and now I think it's a good time to kind of show you how I would use this bag in a kind of like a mixed outdoor kind of like photography expedition. We'll grab something like my Hyperlight Mountain Gear Daybreak, which has been through me through thick and thin, which has usually got everything, which has everything I would have in it for like a casual day out hike or whatever, where I'm pushing some kilometers, but nothing too crazy. But I want to, there's always a remote chance you might get stuck outdoors, so you got to bring a little bit of equipment, or you can survive overnight if you need to. So let's just open up that same top area that I showed you before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the pass-through compartment. So I've just got one big compartment in there. And inside of here, I've got something like, this is a gloves and beanie or whatever, you know, in case I got a first aid kit, in case emergency bivy, in case I've got like, this has everything. It's got like my water filtration kit, compass, like a knife, you know, lighter, stuff like that. Rain gear, a very lightweight shell in there in case I need it. Food bag with all my food in it. Probably carry a little bit more food, but this is a jet boil kind of cook system with a canister and stove and everything inside of there. And then my cat kit, you know, because sometimes you got to poop in the woods. And that's really it. I mean, some water too. And you just dump that all inside of there. And it doesn't even need to be expanded, to be honest with you. That's a pretty, you know, like that's a very reasonable, I think, one day kind of just emergency kind of kit in case you need it, other than food and the thing, whatever. You can see it just fits nicely inside of here. And you can, you know, easily kind of pull this down and then you get into all the stuff that's just the internal divider there. It's all inside of here as you need. And as you can see, there's still plenty of space if I needed to up at the top. I can still expand this whole area and get another whole 10 liters out of the top here. Maybe this is a good point to kind of pause and say, like, this is like represents like what I would consider like, you know, like an emergency. Like you're going out, you're planning to be out all day, but you're still planning on coming home or being back at the car at the end of the day. You're planning on it. You still have some accommodations in case you need to or whatever, spend out, you know, get stuck on the mountain or whatnot. But if you're planning on staying out overnight, like you're planning to go a 1 night, 2 day kind of thing, can you do it in a bag like this? The answer I think is probably yes. To do so, I think you probably want to be using like a small camera cube because that takes about, what, 10, 15 liters. Then you pop the top on this one. Now you've got between this and this about 35 to 40 liters of space, maybe about 35, yeah, something like that. Which I think is enough for an overnight thing. Like the big difference between an overnight trip and like a day trip is you need to bring a sleep system and a shelter. Shelter, usually, you know, look, ultralight, you're 600-700 grams for kind of crazy light type stuff. About 1 kilogram, I think, is reasonable for like most, like, you know, moderate, mortal, ultralight or lightweight type hikers, 1.1 kilograms. And then, you know, like if you're carrying 2 kilogram shelters, it's probably, unless you're splitting with a partner, probably not going to work in a bag like this. And then sleep system is usually like a sleep pad of some sort. And then like a quilt or like a sleeping bag or whatever. Again, if you go with ultralight versions of both of those, you can definitely get those inside of here. Plus you need a little bit more food or whatever. You can definitely make that work. You know, so something like, so for comparison, like when I'm going out, you know, with the intention of camping out overnight or whatever, hiking and camping out overnight, usually I'm carrying like a 40 liter, like hyperlight mountain gear, Unbound or something like that. That has, I don't even come close to filling that one up. So I think that you can definitely make all of that work. Is like, you probably would use like a lighter, smaller cook kit than like the jet boil or whatever, but you can definitely make it work with this. If you're in a medium-sized cube, if you got the medium-sized cube in here, you might be pushing it. Depends on how ultralight your stuff is or how lightweight it is. And obviously I think it also goes down, like you're carrying like a, you know, big bulky, you know, minus 10 Celsius sleeping bag in the winter with like a big thick R value 6. So it's not going to work in this bag. Maybe in the 50 liter or whatever, but anyway, so it is possible. Just wanted to kind of talk about this. Okay, so I've just shown you like what happens like in kind of the mixed use case, and then I've taken out all the stuff inside of here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this part up here, which you can do simply by removing these toggles. And I'm going to remove out this little camera cube here. And then that kind of gives you this big area here. You can fold all this stuff up if you need to. It gives you this big, huge open expanse. So the other use case that I think this bag is really good for is like if you had to carry a bunch of like photography equipment over like rough roads or off the beaten path or whatever. So I have here the large camera insert, like one of my birding kits. So I have here a Sony A1 with a 300 millimeter f2.8. I have here then the holy trinity of zooms. I have A1, another Alpha 1 with a 70-200 2.8. I've got the 24-70 2.8. I've got a 16-35 2.8, and then I've got a 1.4x and a 2x teleconverter for the 300 2.8 here. So this is a kind of kit that will get you could pretty much shoot almost anything with something like this. With some, you know, some exceptions or whatever. So one thing before I get that into the bag, I just want to say, like I mentioned, it's sort of like a birding kit. Like the 300 2.8, works quite well with the 1.4x and even with the 2x teleconverter, especially when you add that onto the A1, which has a ton of resolution, and you shoot that in like an APS-C mode. Like, you're getting substantial reach. That's a 300 times 2 times 1.4x crop or whatever. So you get substantial reach on something like this, which I think definitely is usable for birding, and I do use it for birding all the time. I will talk a little bit more about birding here in a second after I drop this into the bag and show you. So you can drop this into the bag here. It secures in using both of the Velcro straps this time around. And you can see now that takes up the entirety of the whole bag, but you can still open this top up, and then you have another 10 liters on top, separated from your camera gear if you still need to go do the outdoor, stuff and whatever. So I quite like that. And this is a substantial amount of gear that I'm carrying. It's very heavy, but it is, well accommodated by this bag. Now, I did mention birding a lot. And for those of you who are into birding, depending on how far down the rabbit hole you may be or how wise or unwise the financial decisions you make, you may have several larger telephoto lenses. Like the 300-2.8, I think is an amazing lens. I really recommend it, but it's also an extremely niche lens. I think a lot of people who are, into birding or maybe sports photographers or whatever, like, you may possibly own something like a 600 f4, which is, I think, quite a substantial lens. The challenge here is that even though this bag obviously can accommodate this lens physically, and it's a large bag, it's great, robust, low carry, all this stuff, like, does theoretically really well, should be theoretically very well poised to deal with a lens like this. And I think those of you who are fortunate enough to own something like this know that transporting it is a pain in the butt. Like, this is the largest camera cube they make, and unfortunately it's just a little bit too short. So you can't fit it inside of here. I tried. You can even try like kind of jamming it into whatever. It just doesn't work. It doesn't, and it's such a shame because you can see it just is too short by about this much, And that's really unfortunate because I think it would have been a really great option for this bag. It would have just opened it up so much more. Like, this would have been even more amazing, I think, if we had been able to accommodate this. And I hope that they'll consider making like a larger camera cube, an XL, or just like an L plus, just large enough to accommodate something like this. As it is, I think the largest kind of telephoto you can probably get in here is going to be like a 400-2.8. Or I know there are like now like some super zooms, like 200 to 600, that may or may not be able to fit in here. Again, I haven't used all of them, but certainly for your big telephoto primes, I think the 400-2.8 is the largest you're going to be able to get in there. So really, that's kind of the overall gist of this bag here. There's a lot going on in it. I've been using it for a few months. I mentioned I really like it for what it is. I don't usually carry this much gear with me, but when I do, this is an amazing bag. It's quite comfortable, quite flexible, and I really like that it lets me carry like stuff that I need to survive and not be hungry or cold or whatever, thirsty, plus also like my, substantial photography gear for those cases where I do want to do that. And I think that some of the, trade-offs, as I mentioned, is like some fussiness on the straps and then like some friction on like the access, and it's just like a very less heavy bag, but it's kind of the experience that you're kind of signing up for. If you're carrying that much gear, there's no lightweight around it. Like, you need to have substantial load carriage. This one does. And if you want all that kind of functionality, you're going to have some fussiness, sort of unavoidable. So if you're in the market for a bag like this, what are some other bags you might want to consider? Well, I think probably the most direct option for a lot of people is going to be like the Shimoda Action or the Shimoda, Explorer series of bags, which I used to have, but I ended up selling. These are long-running entrants and pretty good choice here. They're similar kind of like adventure gear at the top and photography gear at the bottom, kind of split. The pros of the design is very similar, and like the material is very similar, and there's a lot of similarities here. I think the pros of the bag is like they have swappable shoulder straps and a removable waist belt, which is great. They take a wide variety of camera cubes, including some that can fit a 600mm f4 or those kind of larger lenses. The Action XV2 series has like a roll top style that can carry even more stuff than like even this one does. And it's available in a wide range of size from like 25 to 70 liters, I think, which is a little bit larger than the range that this covers, 30, 40, or 50, or this series does. Now the cons of the Shimoda lines, like they don't have quite as much organization of features as the Pgytech. Sometimes I feel like they were even fussier than and more cognitive load to use than the Pgytech, and they're also much more expensive than the Pgytech in general. It depends on all the specifics that you get, but like generally, I think this one gives you a bit more bang for the buck. But the Shimoda has like some nice kind of touches, about it that you may prefer or not. Now that having said, I did mention that I sold that, and the reason why is like I don't usually just do that kind of travel. Like I'm much more of a lighter, faster kind of guy with like, and I think with modern camera technology, there's just so much more you can do with like 1 or 2 lens setups that it's very rare that you need to take like the whole thing. This is the Alex Stroll times Moment Stroll Pack, and this is like the opposite, as I mentioned, kind of like if you took like a very fast and light style bag, which is what this is, and then you added like one little camera feature, which is like basically this area here at the bottom, which opens up and lets you get into your camera gear like this. And it does technically come, or you can get it with like a holster on the side, which is really good, that I really like for like your camera stuff. I actually use that one more than I even use this bag. There's a lot of similarities in that, or some similarities conceptual anyway. It's got an aluminum frame that has a lot of torsional flex on purpose, because it's a fast and light kind of like moves with you kind of bag here. It's got, non-removable hip belt, same as this one, but this one's, it's appropriate for the size of this bag. It's just a lot less substantial than this. Good load carriage for this style of bag. It's nowhere near like this kind of robustness, but it's just, this is a much lighter bag designed for lighter kind of load out expeditions. So you kind of built-in water bottle holders and like a sternum strap, and just kind of, good outdoorsy bag. 2 water bottle pockets, but very much like in the vein of like fast and light here. You can see you've got similar thing like a top pocket, but this is like the floating brain style. And then inside, or you can open that up and you get this substantial overloading functionality similar to this, but just again, a very fast and light style of bag here. And this is the camera cube that, can be removed or whatever in there. I really like this bag and this kind of style of bag. And in fact, I like it so much that I would say, like, for a lot of people, like, this is a great choice if you're bringing like one full frame body and like a, 1 or 2 lenses and you're fast and light hiker. But maybe for a lot of people, I would say you could even go further than that and just be like, honestly, with modern cameras, like one body and 1 lens will do so much, and you can crop and post or whatever, or like maybe 2 lenses and 1 body, whatever. And for that, you might be better off just putting stuff in like a proper dedicated hiking backpack or outdoor bag, or crossover style bag, like an Evergoods or whatever like that. And then like put your stuff in like a neoprene foam pouch or like a camera cube, a small camera cube, and just drop that inside of there. You're probably gonna have a better time and just have much better, like, affordances and load carriage or whatever for, outdoor type of adventure, especially if you do an overnight thing. However, like I said, there are a couple of really nice sweet spots for this bag here, and so if those are the ones that appeal for you, like, definitely a bag worth checking out. So if you have any questions about this bag, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. If I can, I'll answer them. And if you have any bags you would like me to review, or anything for that matter, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. If I can, I will review them. Thank you very much.